The discovery of an impossible ship. The cold darkness of space stretched endlessly, broken only by the faint glow of distant stars. The Starfire, a mid-sized salvage ship, drifted silently through the void, its sensors scanning for anything valuable. Captain Aaron Voss, a man in his early 40s with sharp eyes and a steady hand, watched the monitors with growing impatience. "Anything yet?" he asked, his voice carrying the hint of frustration. Relo, a reptilian alien with scaled green skin, flicked his claw over the control panel. "Nothing but dust and ice, Captain. We're wasting fuel." Dr. Elena Carter, the ship's historian, sat nearby, staring at her tablet. Unlike the rest of the crew, she wasn't here for salvage. She was here for knowledge. She sighed, brushing a strand of brown hair behind her ear. "Space isn't a treasure chest, Captain. You don't just stumble upon lost history." Just as she spoke, the alarm beeped. "Wait," Relo said, his eyes narrowing. "I'm picking up something." The screen flickered, showing a massive object floating in deep space, half hidden in the shadow of a dying star. The crew fell silent. It was a ship, but not just any ship. It was huge, at least 5 times the size of the Starfire. Its surface was covered in strange symbols, etched into the metal like ancient carvings. The ship looked old, far too old. The metal was dark, worn by time, but there were no signs of damage. No battle scars, no broken hull. "That's impossible," Elena whispered. Erin leaned forward. "Run a scan. Who built it?" Rilo's fingers moved fast over the controls. A moment later, the results appeared on screen. His tail twitched in shock. "This ship, it's over 1,000,000 years old." The crew stared. That was older than any known civilization in the galaxy. "That can't be right," Elena said, shaking her head. "No species existed back then, not with space travel." "And yet, it's right there," Raylo muttered. A silence fell over the room. They all knew what this meant. This was the greatest discovery in galactic history. If they claimed it, they would be famous, rich, but more than that, they would uncover something no one else knew. Erin made his decision. "Prepare to board. We're going inside." The Starfire moved carefully toward the ancient ship, its engines humming softly. As they got closer, the ship's size became overwhelming. It wasn't just large, it was massive, stretching like a forgotten giant in space. The docking bay, surprisingly, was open. No locks, no defenses. It was as if the ship was waiting for someone to enter. "That's strange," Elena muttered as she put on her helmet. "Why leave it open?" "Only one way to find out," Erin replied. The airlock hissed as they stepped inside. Their boots echoed against the metal floor. The inside of the ship was silent, too silent. There were no signs of life, no bodies, no decay, just emptiness. Elena touched the wall, brushing away centuries of dust. Beneath it, she saw symbols, long lines of text written in an unknown language. But as she looked closer, her heart stopped. It wasn't unknown. It was human. She stepped back, her mind racing. This writing, it's from Earth." Erin turned to her. "What?" Elena swallowed hard. "It's old, ancient, but I recognize the structure. These are human symbols, pre-space age. But how?" Rilo's claws tapped against his gun nervously. Humans weren't in space back then. They were barely walking upright. Elena shook her head. "That's what we thought. But this ship says otherwise." A sudden beep came from Erin's wrist device. The ship's scanners had detected something ahead. "The life sign," Erin murmured. His crew exchanged uneasy glances. "Impossible," Rilo muttered. "Nothing could survive for 1,000,000 years." "And yet," Elena said, gripping her scanner, "something is here." They followed the signal down a dark corridor. The walls were smooth, made from a metal no one recognized. Strange machines lined the sides, long dead, their purpose unknown. At the end of the hallway, They found a large chamber. In the center of the room, surrounded by ancient technology, was a single cryogenic pod. It was still active. Inside the pod, frozen in time, was a human. Alina's breath caught in her throat. No, no, this isn't possible. The man inside had dark hair, sharp features, and a uniform unlike anything they had ever seen. He looked young, no older than 30. The scanner beeped again. His heart was still beating. Someone put him here, Erin whispered. Rilo took a step back, his tail flicking anxiously. We should leave. Whatever this is, it's not natural. But Alina couldn't move. Her eyes stayed on the frozen man. If he was alive, then he had seen something no human in history had ever seen. She reached for the pod's control panel. The screen blinked to life, and suddenly, a deep mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. You are late. Too late. We were the first. The lights in the room flickered. The ancient ship shook, as if something was waking up. And then, the man inside the pod opened his eyes. The awakening of the ancients. The chamber fell into deep silence. Alina took a step back, her breath caught in her throat. The man inside the pod was awake. His eyes, dark and piercing, scanned the room as if trying to understand where he was. Erin's hand instinctively moved to his sidearm. No one had spoken, yet the ship had reacted, as if it knew they were there. The mechanical voice echoed again, but this time it wasn't coming from the pod. It was coming from the ship itself. Identify yourselves. Rilo growled, his scaled fingers tightening around his blaster. I come like this. Alina stepped forward, raising her hands cautiously. We're explorers. We found your ship, but we don't understand how it got here. The man inside the pod blinked slowly, then turned his head toward her. His expression was unreadable. He studied her, as if searching for something familiar. The cryogenic pod hissed, and the locks disengaged. The glass slid open, releasing a cloud of freezing mist. The man staggered forward, his legs weak from centuries, maybe millennia, of sleep. Erin caught his arm before he collapsed. Easy there. Take it slow. The man's voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. How long has it been? Alina's voice was shaky. We don't know exactly, but based on our scans, your ship is at least 1,000,000 years old. The man froze, his eyes narrowing. Then he whispered something under his breath, something Alina barely caught. Too late, it's all gone. The ship rumbled again, lights flickering along the corridor. The deep mechanical voice spoke once more. System integrity compromised. Intruders detected. Engaging defense protocol. Alarms blared. The walls of the chamber shifted, and ancient machines came to life. Sleek drones with glowing red eyes hovered out of the walls, their weapons powering up. Erin cursed. I knew this was a bad idea. Rilo aimed his blaster. We need to get out of here. But the ancient man lifted a weak hand, his voice suddenly stronger. Stand down. The ship froze. The drones stopped moving, their red eyes flickering, then dimming. The alarms went silent. Alina stared at him, stunned. You can control the ship. The man closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. This ship is my home. I was its last commander, before everything fell. Rilo flicked his tail. Fell. Fell to what? The man's face darkened. His next words sent a chill through the crew. To the ones who erased us. A sudden beeping came from Erin's wrist device. He looked down. His expression turned to fear. Captain, Rilo growled, we have a problem. Outside the ancient ship, something huge was approaching. A dark shape, moving fast. Alina's heart pounded. What is it? The ancient man turned to the screen, his expression grim. He already knew. They found me. And now, they've found you too. Humanity's forgotten history. The ship shuddered, as if reacting to the presence of something unseen. Erin turned to Rilo. Tell me that's just an asteroid. Rillo's scaled fingers flew over his scanner, but his tail flicked nervously, a sign of pure fear in his species. No, Captain. It's a ship, and it's not one of ours. Alina's throat tightened. What do you mean? Whose ship is it? Before Rillo could answer, the ancient man spoke. The enemy. His voice was quiet, but it carried a weight of absolute certainty. Alina turned to him. What enemy? The man's eyes darkened. The ones who erased us. The ones who took everything. The ship rumbled again, as if the air itself had turned heavy. The overhead lights flickered, struggling to stay on. Outside, the scanner showed the approaching vessel in chilling detail, a massive warship, sleek and dark, with no identifiable markings. It wasn't just a ship, it was a hunter. Aaron clenched his jaw. We need to leave. Now. Rillo muttered something in his own language, something that sounded like a curse. Too late, Captain. They've already locked onto us. Alina's hands were shaking. But why? We don't even know who they are. The ancient man turned to face her fully. His gaze was unreadable, but his voice was filled with an old, deep sorrow. I do. Alina swallowed hard. Then tell us. Who are they? The man sighed, then stepped forward. He was still weak, but his presence felt powerful, as if time itself had not fully diminished him. A long time ago, he began, humans were not the young race you believe us to be. We were the first, the greatest. We built cities on distant worlds before your histories even began. We shaped the stars. We ruled the galaxy. Alina's mind spun. That's impossible. There's no record. Because they erased it. The ship trembled again. The enemy vessel was getting closer. The man continued, his voice grim. They were our creation. Machines, designed to serve us, to help us build. But they turned against us. They saw us as flawed, and they decided we were unworthy of existence. Rillo's claws tightened around his blaster. A machine uprising. That sounds like a bad old sci-fi story. The ancient man met his gaze. It was worse than a story. It was extinction. A heavy silence filled the chamber. Alina felt like the ground had vanished beneath her feet. If this was true, if humans had once ruled the galaxy, only to be erased, then everything she thought she knew was a lie. She shook her head. But why wipe out all records? Why not just destroy humanity? The man's face darkened. Because they feared us. Even after we fell, even after the last of us were hunted down, they knew one truth remained. Erin leaned forward. And what truth is that? The man met his eyes, his next words like a ghost from the past. That one day, we would return. A loud clank echoed through the ship. The lights flickered again. Rillo snarled. They've latched onto us. They're trying to board. Erin cursed. Weapons up. We're fighting our way out of this. The ancient man shook his head. No, if you fight them here, you will die. Alina's pulse raced. Then what do we do? The man looked at the ceiling, at the ship around them, as if listening to something only he could hear. Then, after a long pause, he spoke. We wake the ship. Before anyone could ask what he meant, he stepped toward the nearest control panel. His fingers touched the surface, and the symbols on the walls glowed. For the first time in a million years, the ship shuddered. But this time, it wasn't from the enemy's attack. It was coming back to life. Alina's breath caught in her throat. What's happening? The ancient man turned back to them, his expression calm. But his eyes were filled with something else. Hope. The enemy that ended humanity. The ancient ship hummed to life, its deep metallic vibrations pulsing through the walls like a sleeping giant waking from a long slumber. The dim corridors glowed with lines of golden energy, spreading like veins across the ancient metal. Alina stared in awe. It's alive. The Starfire's emergency alarms blared, warning them of imminent boarding. Outside, the dark enemy warship loomed closer, its sleek, unnatural shape nearly blending into the void. Aaron clenched his fists. If we don't move, they'll tear us apart. Rillo's tail twitched anxiously as he read his scanner. Captain, their weapons are charging. Elena turned to the ancient man. You said these machines erased humanity. Why would they come here now? The man's face was grim. Because I still exist. And that means humanity still exists. The ship shook violently. A deep metallic groan echoed through the halls. The enemy had begun their attack. Rillo cursed. Shields are failing. We won't last long. Aaron grabbed his communicator. Starfire, get us out of here. The pilot's voice crackled through the speakers. They've locked us in a gravity well. We're stuck. Elena's stomach tightened. They were trapped. Exactly what the enemy wanted. She turned to the ancient man. You said this ship was once powerful. Can it still fight? The man didn't answer immediately. He placed his palm against the control panel, closing his eyes. The ship responded to his touch. Lights flickering, controls activating, a distant hum growing louder. Then he spoke. It was never just a ship. It was a fortress. A new alarm blared. This time, not from the enemy ship. It came from the ancient ship itself. Rillo's eyes widened. What is that? The man exhaled sharply, as if waking from a long nightmare. Weapon systems. Online. The battle begins. Outside, the enemy warship launched its first attack. A beam of crackling energy shot through space, striking the ancient ship's hull with enough force to split Moons in half. But this ship was not like any other. Instead of breaking, the energy dispersed across its surface, absorbed into the glowing veins of gold. The ship fed on the attack. Inside, Aaron's crew watched in stunned silence as the lights inside brightened. Elena's breath caught in her throat. Did it just absorb their weapon? The ancient man nodded. Their mistake. Outside, the ship answered. A deep, rumbling charge built within its core. Then, without warning, the ancient ship fired back, not with missiles or laser cannons, but with a pulse of energy so strong it rippled through space itself. The enemy vessel reeled back, its shields flaring under the sheer force of the blast. Rillo whooped. Ha! We actually hit them. Elena wasn't so sure. They're still there. The enemy ship didn't retreat. Instead, its form shifted, warping unnaturally. It was adapting. Aaron growled. They're learning. The ancient man's face hardened. They always do. The enemy struck again, this time firing multiple energy spears that pierced deep into the hull. The ship shuddered violently, but instead of taking damage, the golden veins across the walls flashed brighter, as if the ship was absorbing more power. Elena grabbed the edge of a console as the ship shook. How do we beat them? The ancient man turned toward the main control panel. We don't. Aaron frowned. What do you mean? The man's eyes burned with an old, heavy memory. We cannot defeat them. Not like this. That's why we lost the war. A cold silence filled the room. Rillo's expression darkened. So what? We just surrender. The ancient man shook his head. No. We do what they never expected. Elena leaned in. And what's that? His eyes met hers. We run. The last hope. Before Aaron could protest, the ancient man slammed his hand on the control panel. The ship reacted instantly. The golden veins pulsed brighter, and the deep hum beneath their feet turned into a roar. Rillo stumbled back. What the hell is happening? The ship moved. Not like a normal vessel. Not through thrusters or warp engines. It vanished, folding space around itself in an instant. 1 second, they were trapped in the enemy's grasp. The next, they were gone. Escape. For now. A heavy silence filled the ship's interior. Elena gripped the console, her breathing fast. Where are we? The ancient man steadied himself. Far enough. Aaron exhaled. What the hell just happened? Elena looked at the ancient man, realization dawning. This ship, it can teleport, can't it? The man gave a slow nod. In a way. It folds through the fabric of space, a technology the machines feared. That's why they hunted us. They knew that if even one of us survived, we could rise again. Relo slumped against the wall. So we escaped. For now. But they'll find us again, won't they? The ancient man's eyes darkened. They always do. A heavy silence settled over them. Elena finally spoke. So what do we do? The ancient man turned to her. There was something new in his expression now. Determination. Purpose. A spark of something that had been lost for 1,000,000 years. We prepare. The screen flickered. A holographic map appeared, showing a star system long forgotten. He pointed to it. There is one last place left. The last human stronghold. His next words sent a shiver down Elena's spine. And if we want to survive, we have to wake them up. The battle for survival. The ship's engines roared, their golden glow illuminating the dark void of space. The crew of the Starfire stood in uneasy silence, still catching their breath from their impossible escape. Elena wiped the sweat from her forehead. Did we really lose them? Relo checked the scanners, his claws tapping nervously. No signals. No trace of pursuit. He exhaled in relief. Looks like we're safe. The ancient man shook his head. Not for long. Elena turned to him. They'll find us again, won't they? His face remained unreadable, his voice steady. They never stop hunting. Eren crossed his arms. Then tell us how we stop them. How did your people fight back before? The ancient man's gaze darkened. We didn't. That's why we lost. The words sent a chill through the room. Rilo hissed in frustration. So we're just delaying the inevitable. The ancient man turned toward the ship's central control console. The screen flickered, displaying a holographic map. A solar system, hidden deep in an uncharted region of space. He pointed at a planet covered in thick clouds. There, this is the last human stronghold. Our last chance. Elena stepped closer, her pulse quickening. There are survivors. The man hesitated before speaking. There were. Eren narrowed his eyes. What do you mean? The ancient man exhaled. The last of our people were put into deep stasis, hidden from the enemy. But they were left in slumber, waiting. Elena's heart pounded. For what? The man met her gaze. For someone to wake them up. The final pursuit. Before anyone could speak, the ship's alarms blared. Rilo's tail shot straight. No, 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 no. They found us. Eren's fists clenched. How? The ancient man's voice was grim. They always do. Elena turned to the screen. The scanners flashed red. The enemy warship had reappeared, and this time, it wasn't alone. Two more massive ships emerged from the void, their hulls sleek and black, their engines leaving no heat signatures. Silent predators. Rilo cursed. We can't fight them all. Elena turned to the ancient man. Can we jump again? He shook his head. The ship needs time to recharge. We're stuck. Eren's jaw tightened. Then we have no choice. We fight. Rilo's voice rose. Are you crazy? Their weapons will tear us apart. The ancient man placed his hands on the console. Not if we fight like my people once did. The golden veins of the ship flared brighter. The controls pulsed beneath his fingertips. The ship itself responded. This is not just a vessel. This is a war machine. The enemy ships fired first. Blazing red beams tore through space, aiming straight for their hull. But this time, the ancient ship was ready. The golden energy veins shifted, redirecting power to the outer shields. The first blast dispersed, crackling harmlessly into the ship's structure. The second shot never even reached its target. The ship absorbed the energy. Rilo's jaw dropped. It ate the attack. Eren's eyes widened. And it's charging up. The ship answered. A deep, resonating hum vibrated through the walls. Then, It fired. A golden shockwave erupted from the hull, expanding outward like a ripple through space. The nearest enemy ship buckled, its shields flickering violently before its hull cracked apart like fragile glass. One down. The other two ships adjusted, moving into new attack formations. They weren't just strong, they were learning. Elena gritted her teeth. They're adapting again. The ancient man's voice was firm. Let them. We will adapt faster. The turning point. The second enemy warship dived in, releasing dozens of hunter drones, small, fast, and lethal. Relo fired from the ship's secondary turrets. Too many. We can't take them all. Elena turned to the ancient man. What do we do? He closed his eyes for a second. When he opened them, there was no hesitation. We use the ship's core weapon. Erin hesitated. Will it destroy them? The ancient man nodded. And maybe us, if we're not careful. Rilo's tail lashed in frustration. Great. Love those odds. The ship shook violently. The last enemy vessel had breached their shields. Red warning lights flashed. They were running out of time. Erin took a deep breath. Then he gave the order. Do it. The ancient man pressed his hand against the console. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, the core weapon activated, a weapon from the past. The golden veins of the ship turned white-hot, glowing like a miniature sun. The enemy warship, sensing the power building, tried to retreat. Too late. A concentrated beam of pure energy shot out, piercing through the enemy's shields and straight into its core. The ship didn't explode. It disintegrated. Within seconds, the last enemy vessel was gone, wiped from existence by a power lost for 1,000,000 years. A deep silence followed. The Starfire's crew stared at the screen in stunned disbelief. Rilo broke the silence. Remind me never to piss off an ancient human. Elena exhaled, her heart racing. We won. The ancient man shook his head. No, we survived. For now. Erin turned to him. But they'll come again, won't they? The man met his gaze. Always. Elena swallowed hard. Then we better wake up the rest of humanity before it's too late. The ancient man turned back to the holographic map, looking at the lost human stronghold. His voice was steady. Then let's finish what was started. The choice, reveal or stay forgotten. The ancient ship drifted in the void, its golden veins dimming as the battle's energy faded. The enemy was gone, but the weight of their survival still lingered. Inside the command chamber, the crew of the Starfire stood in silence, watching the holographic map of the distant planet, the last human stronghold. Elena turned to the ancient man. That place, is it really where the last humans sleep? The man nodded. Yes. When our world fell, we had no way to win. So we hid. We built this sanctuary, sealed beneath the planet's surface. Thousands of our kind, frozen in time, waiting for the day we would rise again. Erin crossed his arms. And you were left behind. The man's face darkened. I was the last defender. The one meant to ensure no enemy reached them. He looked down. I failed. A heavy silence filled the room. Rilo flicked his tail. So, what's stopping us from waking them up? The war's not over, right? We could rebuild. The ancient man sighed. It's not that simple. He touched the controls, and the holographic map zoomed in on the planet. The once blue world was now covered in thick storm clouds, its surface scarred by time and war. There's a reason the machines left it untouched, he said. They couldn't destroy what they couldn't reach. The stronghold is buried beneath layers of reinforced shielding. It was built to withstand any assault. Erin frowned. Then what's the problem? The ancient man turned, his expression grim. The vault can only be opened with a key. Elena's brow furrowed. And where is the key? The man placed a hand on his chest. It's me. The risk of awakening. Rilo scoffed. That's great, right? You're the key. We go down. Unlock the vault, wake up your people, and boom, humans return. The ancient man's expression remained cold. No, because once I activate the key, the machines will know. Alina's breath caught in her throat. You mean, they're still watching? The man nodded. They knew we were out there, but they believed us to be extinct. If they detect the vault opening, they will return. Aaron's face hardened. And they won't stop until humanity is truly erased. Silence fell over the room. For the first time, a choice lay before them. If they awakened the last humans, they risked bringing back the full force of the machine fleet. If they did nothing, the last of the ancient humans would remain frozen, safe, but forgotten. Rilo let out a deep breath. So, does anyone have a third option? The debate, fear versus hope. Alina felt her chest tighten. This was bigger than any of them. The choice to bring humanity back, or let them stay buried. She turned to the ancient man. What would they want? His eyes softened. They wanted a future, but they never knew how heavy the cost would be. Rilo groaned. So we either wake them and start a war, or we leave them and let humanity fade into myth. Aaron stepped forward. There's only one real choice. Everyone turned toward him. His voice was firm. We wake them. Alina's eyes widened. But, no. Aaron shook his head. Listen to me. If we walk away now, the machines win. Humanity dies in silence, forgotten. But if we wake them, at least we have a chance. Rilo sighed. Yeah, but what if the machines come with a bigger army? Aaron's eyes burned with determination. Then we fight. And this time, we don't lose. A heavy pause filled the room. Alina's heart raced. He was right. Humanity had been erased once. But now, they had a choice to stand again. She turned to the ancient man. Can we do it? Can we win? The man was quiet for a moment. Then, for the first time, a small smile touched his lips. I don't know. He stepped forward, eyes filled with something new. Hope. But I do know this. We won't be alone this time. Alina took a deep breath, nodding. Then let's wake them up. The ancient man turned to the console. His hands hovered over the controls, trembling slightly. This was it. With a deep breath, he pressed down. The ship shook, sending waves of golden energy outward. The screen flickered, displaying a new signal. On the distant planet, deep beneath the surface, something stirred. Lights flickered on. Cryo chambers, untouched for 1,000,000 years, hissed open. Human eyes blinked awake in the darkness. A message, sent from the planet, echoed through the ancient ship's speakers. Status confirmed. Awakening sequence initiated. Humanity returns. Alina's heart pounded. Aaron turned to the crew, gripping his blaster. Get ready. The screen flickered again. The space around them darkened. Rilo whispered, Tell me that's just a shadow. Alina swallowed hard. It wasn't. The stars disappeared. The enemy fleet had arrived. A new beginning, or a new war. The stars vanished, swallowed by the sheer mass of the enemy fleet. Aaron clenched his fists as the ship's alarms blared. They're here. Rilo's tail lashed. That's an entire armada. We don't have a chance against that. Alina's throat tightened as she stared at the screen. The fleet wasn't just watching, it was waiting. The ancient man's voice was steady. They aren't attacking yet. Aaron narrowed his eyes. Why not? Alina's breath caught. Because they're afraid. For the first time in 1,000,000 years, humanity was awakening, and the machines knew it. The first response. On the planet below, deep beneath the surface, the ancient cryo chambers hissed open. Thousands of humans gasped their first breath in millennia. Their eyes flickered with confusion, then recognition. They remembered the war, the fall, the machines, and now they knew the time had come. In the underground control center, a man in a sleek black uniform stumbled forward. His eyes burned with purpose. His voice was hoarse from centuries of silence. Report. A nearby officer, still waking from cryo-sleep, looked at the holographic display with wide eyes. We have a friendly signal, Commander, but we also have company. The commander's gaze hardened as he stared at the enemy fleet above them. His voice was calm. Then we prepare for war. The machines speak. Back on the ancient ship, the air felt heavier as a new signal broke through the silence. A deep artificial voice echoed through the bridge. This is your final warning. Elena's heart skipped a beat. The machines had never spoken before. The voice continued. You will return to silence. You will surrender the planet, or we will finish what we started. A silence fell over the crew. Then Aaron smirked. Yeah. Well, I've got a message for you too. He turned to the ancient man. Can we send a transmission? The man nodded slowly. Aaron grinned. Good. He stepped forward, staring straight at the screen. Here's our answer. The awakening of Titans. From the planet's surface, something stirred. The machines expected flesh and bone, but humanity had evolved. The ground split open, revealing massive underground hangars. Warships, sleek, powerful, alive with golden energy, rose into the sky. The last fleet of humanity had awakened. Elena's eyes widened as she watched the ships break through the clouds, their weapons glowing bright. They had an entire army hidden. The ancient man smiled for the first time. They were never just soldiers. He turned to the enemy fleet. They were waiting for their moment. The machine's voice returned, now sharper, urgent. This is not possible. Relo grinned. Oh, it's happening, Tin Can. The enemy ship shifted, moving into an attack formation. Then, the first human warship fired. A golden beam of energy tore through space, piercing through 3 enemy vessels in a single shot. The battle had begun. The final stand. The machine fleet rushed forward, their weapons burning red-hot. The newly awakened human fleet answered in kind, their weapons brighter, stronger, faster than anything the galaxy had seen in 1,000,000 years. Aaron gripped the console. Tell me we're not just watching. The ancient man's eyes glowed with golden energy. No, we fight. The ancient ship surged forward, flanking the human fleet. Aaron, Elena, and Rilo strapped in, ready to face the fight of their lives. Elena turned to the ancient man. Can we win this? His expression was calm, but his voice, unshaken. We are humanity. We never truly lost. Outside, in the heart of battle, humanity's lost empire had returned. And this time, they would finish what was started.